Black waitress fed a billionaire's autistic son. What his father saw made him break down. What could have happened when a black waitress fed a billionaire's autistic son? And what exactly did his father see that affected him so deeply? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're so glad you're here with us for another emotional and unforgettable story. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a powerful story like this one. Thank you so much for watching, supporting, and being part of our growing community. And now, we'd love to hear from you. What do you think a father might feel after witnessing a moment like this? Now, let's step into the story and discover how it all began. The silver plate struck marble, and 6 untouched scallops slid beneath a billionaire's table. Crystal chimed. Forks froze. The pianist missed a note beneath Aurelia's amber chandeliers, then forced the melody forward as if nothing had happened. 10-year-old Eli crouched against the velvet banquette, palms clamped over his ears. Butter sauce glistened on the floor near his polished shoe. The dining room smelled of truffle, seared beef, and money old enough to demand silence. Adrian Vale remained standing beside his chair, a phone glowing in one hand. The billionaire had spent the evening negotiating a multi-billion-dollar acquisition between calls, correcting Eli's posture without once noticing how every correction tightened the boy's shoulders. Eli. Adrian's voice cut cleanly through the piano. Sit up. Eli squeezed his eyes shut. A server reached for the fallen plate, and porcelain scraped against stone. Eli recoiled so sharply that his elbow knocked a water glass sideways. Ice scattered across the white linen. Murmurs traveled from table to table. Adrian saw the turned heads first. He saw the phones lowered just enough to appear discreet. He saw investors, attorneys, and society donors witnessing something he could not control. What he did not see was the chandelier reflected in Eli's trembling eyelashes, flashing each time the boy opened his eyes. He did not hear the separate assault hidden inside Aurelia's elegance. The violin speaker overhead, the espresso grinder behind the bar, silverware colliding in a bus tub, 3 conversations rising at once. Nia Brooks heard all of it. She stood 6 feet away with a coffee pot warming her palm through a folded cloth. The floor manager motioned sharply toward the mess, but Nia did not move. Her eyes settled on Eli's untouched food. The scallops had been arranged against asparagus. Sauce touched potatoes. A lemon slice rested across everything. Then she noticed the bread plate. Eli had separated 3 butter packets by color and aligned them along the rim, blue beside blue, gold beside gold. His breathing came in short pulls. His fingers pressed harder against his ears whenever the pianist struck the higher keys. Handle this, Adrian told the floor manager. His jaw barely moved. Make him behave normally. The word normally landed more heavily than the plate had. The manager approached with a practiced smile and reached toward Eli's shoulder. Young man, you need to return to your seat. Don't touch him. Nia's voice was quiet, but it stopped the manager's hand in midair. Adrian turned. For the first time, he looked directly at the black waitress holding the coffee pot. Her uniform was immaculate, her name tag catching a blade of gold light. Around them, Aurelia resumed, pretending not to watch. Excuse me, the manager whispered. Nia set the pot down without breaking eye contact with Eli. He isn't misbehaving. Another sharp piano note rang out. Eli folded tighter, forehead nearly against his knees. He's overwhelmed, she said. The lights, the noise, the food touching, everything is reaching him at once. Adrian's expression hardened, authority sliding back into place like a locked door. My son has eaten in better restaurants than this. Then maybe nobody noticed what it cost him. The manager inhaled through his teeth. Adrian's phone vibrated again, but he did not answer it. Nia slowly removed the metal service tray from her arm before its shine could throw more light toward the boy. She did not approach. Not yet. Instead, she watched the pattern of his breathing, the alignment of the butter packets, and the precise moment his hands loosened whenever the pianist paused between songs. Eli was not rejecting dinner. He was searching for one safe thing in a room that offered him none. Nia stepped toward the piano. The manager caught her wrist with 2 fingers. One more disruption, he warned, and you're done. Across the room, the final chord faded. Eli's hands shifted a fraction from his ears. Nia looked at him, then at the manager's grip. She had only seconds to choose which rule mattered more. The manager's fingers tightened as a cold draft slipped through Aurelia's brass-framed doors. Above the dining room, amber light fractured across crystal glasses, while the pianist lifted his hands for another song. "Let go," Nia said. Not loudly. The manager released her wrist because several nearby guests had begun watching. Nia used that opening not to approach Eli, but to change the room around him. She signaled the pianist to wait. She dimmed the small lamp aimed at the table, turned a polished champagne bucket so its curved surface stopped flashing in Eli's eyes, and asked a busser to remove the clattering silverware. One sound vanished, then another. Adrian remained beside his chair, his phone dark in his palm. "What are you doing?" Giving him less to fight. Nia lowered herself several feet from Eli, leaving open space between them. The marble felt cold through her uniform, and roasted garlic hung heavily in the suddenly quiet air. She kept her eyes on the carpet rather than demanding his. Eli still covered his ears, but his elbows were no longer locked. On the floor beside him lay 4 butter packets, their foil wrappers gleaming beneath the table. 2 gold, 1 blue, 1 green. Nia noticed that he had arranged them by color. A white napkin had been folded into a narrow strip and placed parallel to the blue packet. She reached toward another napkin, then stopped before touching it. Eli's fingers twitched. Nia withdrew her hand. "Your order," she murmured. "Not mine." His breathing remained fast, but he moved the green packet half an inch until its edge aligned with the others. Adrian glanced at the untouched food, then at the packets. He had spent thousands of dollars on specialists, private dining rooms, and carefully prepared meals. Yet he had not seen the small system his son was building beneath the table. Nia tapped one finger softly against the carpet. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Eli did not look at her. That was not the permission she needed. She waited through the hiss of an espresso machine and the faint rattle of ice behind the bar, then repeated the pattern. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. Eli's right hand shifted away from his ear. His fingertip touched the blue butter packet. Once. Nia answered with 1 tap. A tiny exchange. No command. No test. The manager stepped forward. "That is enough. Get off the floor." Adrian lifted one hand, blocking him without taking his gaze from Eli. It was the first decision he had made that evening without checking who might be watching. "Wait." The manager froze. Eli moved the blue packet closer to Nia. Then he tapped the marble twice. Nia mirrored him, slower this time. His left hand came down. Both ears were uncovered. The dining room did not erupt in applause. No one dared breathe loudly enough for that. Eli raised his face, not toward his father, and not toward the guests holding their phones, but toward the woman who had asked before entering his world. His eyes rested near Nia's shoulder. "Blue stays separate," he whispered. "Blue stays separate," Nia agreed. His gaze dropped to the divided shape of the folded napkin. Then, with one careful finger, he pointed toward the dinner table. "Food too." Nia saw the empty saucer, the touching portions, and the silver plate reflecting the chandelier above. She understood exactly what he was asking for. The manager understood only that she was about to violate another rule. He leaned close enough for his warning to cut through the quiet. "Sit on this floor and serve him your way, Brooks, and you lose this job." Nia untied the clean service cloth from her waist and spread it beside Eli. "Bring me 3 small plates." 3 small porcelain plates clicked onto the service tray, their white surfaces catching none of the chandelier's harsh silver glare. Steam curled from the roasted chicken, carrying rosemary and warm butter through the cooler air near the floor. Nia moved the tray away from Eli before lifting anything from it. "Nothing touches," she said softly. "You choose what comes closer." The floor manager blocked her path, one polished shoe planted beside the service cloth. "Last warning, Brooks." His voice was low, but nearby forks stopped scraping. Nia removed her gold Aurelia name pin and placed it on the table. The metal struck the marble with a clean, final sound. Then she carried the food past him. On the first plate, She set 3 plain slices of chicken with space between them. The second held 4 roasted potatoes, their crisp edges kept clear of every other flavor. A single piece of asparagus went onto the third. No sauce, no garnish, no silver cover reflecting Eli's face back at him. She lowered herself onto the cloth, smoothing her black uniform skirt beneath her knees. Eli washed her hands from behind the shelter of the chair. Nia did not offer him a fork. She did not lift food toward his mouth. Instead, she arranged the plates in a shallow arc and tapped the floor once. Pause. Twice. The same rhythm that had asked permission before. Eli's fingers tightened around a blue butter packet. His gaze traveled from the chicken to the potatoes, then back to Nia's waiting hand. Which one is safe? She asked. Eli pointed to the potatoes. Nia slid that plate forward only 2 inches. Porcelain whispered against the service cloth. Closer. One tap came from beneath the chair. She moved it another inch. Adrian remained beside the table, but the commanding voice he used in boardrooms did not appear. His phone vibrated against the linen. He silenced it without looking at the screen. This choice belonged to Eli, and for once, his father did not seize it from him. The boy extended one hand, then stopped. Nia kept both palms on her knees. You can change your mind. Eli studied the roasted surface, picked up the smallest potato, and touched it to his lower lip. A high piano note rang from across the dining room. His shoulders jumped. Nia answered with the rhythm against her knee. 1, pause, 2, until his breathing matched the spaces between the taps. Only then did Eli take a bite. The crisp edge broke with a faint crackle. Warm rosemary filled the silence around him. He chewed once, twice, 6 times, then placed the remaining piece on an empty part of the plate. Nia waited. Eli tapped once. Another? She asked. Twice. She nudged the plate forward. He chose the next piece himself. Around them, Aurelia slowly resumed breathing. Ice shifted inside crystal glasses, the kitchen door sighed open, and a distant espresso machine released a ribbon of steam. But the floor manager was no longer watching Eli. His eyes had settled on Nia's name pin. Pick that up, he ordered. Nia continued the steady rhythm while Eli reached for a third bite. Stand up now, Brooks. A chair scraped behind them. From the neighboring table, a guest raised a phone, its camera lens aimed directly at the black waitress seated on the floor and the billionaire's son eating beside her. The red recording light came on. Look at this, the guest murmured, loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Aurelia has waitresses hand-feeding children now. Nia did not turn toward the camera. She did not break the rhythm. Eli's hand hovered above the plate, waiting to see whether the one safe person in the room would leave. The floor manager stepped forward and pointed at her discarded pin. On your feet, he said, or you're finished here. Nia slid the potato plate 1 inch closer to Eli. Then fire me. The red recording light reflected in the spilled water like a tiny warning flare. Around it, candle flames trembled in crystal holders, and the restaurant's chilled air carried the scent of brown butter and rosemary. Nia kept 2 fingers against the warm porcelain plate. Tap, tap, tap. Across from her, Eli chose a separated piece of roasted potato and lifted it to his mouth. He chewed. The neighboring guest leaned closer with his phone. This is unbelievable, he said, smiling at his screen. A waitress feeding Adrian Vale's son on the floor. Soft laughter moved through the nearby tables. Eli's shoulders climbed toward his ears. His gaze dropped to the blue pattern in the carpet. The potato stopped halfway to the plate. Nia turned one palm upward and waited. No command, no touch, just space. Eli placed the potato down, then tapped the rim once. Nia answered once. His shoulders lowered by half an inch. The floor manager stepped between the camera and their plates, not to protect Eli, but to block the Aurelia crest stitched across Nia's vest. Stand up, he said through clenched teeth. You're humiliating this restaurant. Nia shifted enough to keep his polished shoe from entering Eli's narrow field of vision. Please move back. You don't give instructions here. The manager reached toward the plates. Eli recoiled, knocking his elbow against the table leg. Silverware rattled overhead. His breathing turned thin and quick. Nia covered none of it with soothing lies. She simply restored the rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Eli's fingers found the carpet and answered. The manager's face hardened. Last chance, Brooks. Get up, clear this mess, and apologize to the dining room. The guest kept filming. Come on, he mocked. Give the kid another bite for the camera. Nia looked directly into the phone's lens for the first time. Put it away. He did not consent to being recorded. The smile behind the phone faltered, but the device stayed raised. Nia removed her black service apron with one hand, folded it, and placed it beside the name pin on the floor. The fabric landed without a sound. Then she returned her open palm to Eli. He looked at the apron, at the manager, at Nia. His fingers trembled once before selecting another potato. This time, he held it toward her instead of his mouth. Nia did not take it. She tapped once, asking. Eli tapped once in return, then allowed her to guide the bite, only the final inch. He ate while the camera watched. He ate while the room whispered. He ate because Nia refused to make his safety conditional on her paycheck. The floor manager pulled a termination card from his jacket and set it on the table with a sharp slap. Effective immediately, Nia's employee number showed beneath Aurelia's gold seal. Her next week's shifts disappeared from the tablet in his hand. Rent, groceries, every practical consequence sat inside that small glowing screen. Nia never reached for it. She stayed on the floor until Eli swallowed and placed both hands flat on his knees. Only then did she begin to rise. A small hand closed around two of her fingers. Don't go, Eli whispered. The room lost its last trace of laughter. Nia lowered herself again. Behind them, Adrian Vale's silent phone lay face down beside a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars. For the first time that evening, he was no longer looking at the camera, the manager, or the watching room. He was staring at his son's hand wrapped around the fingers of the woman Aurelia had just discarded. Then Eli spoke again, barely louder than the air conditioning above them. She doesn't get mad when I'm not like everybody else. Adrian's chair moved backward across the marble. The scrape of Adrian's chair cut through Aurelia like a blade across glass. A final piano chord trembled beneath the gold ceiling, then vanished, leaving only the low hum of air conditioning and Eli's uneven breathing. Adrian reached for his phone. One call could bury the recording, silence the guest, reverse Nia's dismissal, and make the floor manager apologize before the entrees cooled. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then Eli's fingers tightened around Nia's hand. She doesn't get mad when I'm not like everybody else. The phone went dark in Adrian's palm. For years, he had paid specialists, rearranged schedules, and reserved private rooms, believing enough money could remove every difficult moment from his son's life. Yet he had still asked Eli to tolerate chandeliers that burned too brightly, silverware that struck porcelain like alarms, and food crowded together beneath a mirrored lid. Worse, he had called that discomfort misbehavior. Adrian looked at the roasted potatoes separated on the small white plate. Eli was not afraid of them. He was watching the adults around him, waiting to learn whether one wrong movement would make them angry again. The realization reached Adrian without drama. His jaw loosened. His shoulders dropped. For once, there was no assistant beside him to translate failure into strategy. Mr. Vale, the floor manager said, gripping his tablet, we can move your son to the private dining room while security escorts her. No, Adrian placed his silenced phone beside the unsigned contract. The neighboring guest lowered his own device an inch, but did not stop recording. Adrian did not threaten him. He did not summon an attorney. Instead, the billionaire stepped away from his chair and lowered one knee onto Aurelia's cold marble floor. Fabric tightened across his tailored trousers. A damp mark from the spilled water touched his cuff. Every face in the room turned toward him. Eli glanced up, one hand still covering part of his left ear. Adrian stayed several feet away. May I sit here? He asked. Eli studied him, then tapped twice against Nia's fingers. Nia answered with two soft taps and looked toward the empty space beside her. Adrian lowered himself fully. He did not touch the plate. He did not tell Eli to take another bite. I thought helping meant making everything easier for everyone around you, Adrian said, his voice rough beneath the muted clink of glassware from the kitchen. I made it easier for myself instead. The floor manager stepped forward. Sir, This is not inappropriate. Adrian raised one hand without looking away from Eli. Step back. The manager stopped. Ms. Brooks has been terminated. Your employment decision does not give you authority over my son. Adrian finally turned, his palm resting flat against the chilled marble. Eli asked her to stay. You will not interrupt them again. The power in the room shifted without a raised voice. The manager's tablet hung uselessly at his side. Adrian looked at Nia, not as an employee waiting for instructions, but as the only person who had asked Eli's permission before entering his space. Please continue, he said, if he wants you to. Nia tapped once. Eli answered once, selected another potato, and lifted it to his mouth. Adrian watched him chew. His eyes reddened, but he did not hide behind his phone or turn toward the watching tables. Then his gaze fell on the worn, divided lunchbox partly visible inside Nia's open work bag. One corner had been repaired with faded blue tape. You knew exactly what he needed, Adrian said quietly. Who taught you? Nia's hand stopped above the plate. For the first time that night, the silence belonged to her. A single piano note trembled above the clink of silverware, then dissolved into the warm amber light. The divided lunchbox rested inside Nia's open bag, its faded blue tape dull against the polished marble. Nia drew it out carefully and placed it beside Eli's 3 small plates. My brother taught me, she said. Her thumb traced the repaired corner. His name was Micah. Eli stopped with half a roasted potato between his fingers. Adrian remained on the floor, his phone dark beside his knee. He did not fill the silence. Years earlier, Nia explained, Micah had needed his food separated, the soft from the crisp, the warm from the cold. Their mother worked double shifts, so Nia packed his lunches each morning in that box. Chicken in one compartment, apple slices in another. Nothing touching. He wasn't trying to be difficult, she said. He was trying to stay steady. The citrus scent of table polish mixed with roasted rosemary as Eli leaned closer to inspect the blue tape. Nia tapped once beside the potato plate. He answered once, then ate. Micah's school had not offered him that patience. Teachers called him defiant when fluorescent lights overwhelmed him. Administrators called him disruptive when crowded hallways made him cover his ears. For years, every report reduced a frightened child to 2 words, difficult behavior. Nia had learned to read what those reports ignored, the tightening fingers, the shallow breaths, the need for warning before touch. Micah had died years later, but his lunchbox remained. Not as a shrine, as an instruction. Nia opened the empty compartments. It reminds me that being understood shouldn't be a privilege someone has to earn. The floor manager's tablet chimed. Its cold blue glow cut across his face as he tapped the screen, avoiding Adrian's eyes. Your termination has been processed, he said. Effective immediately. Building access ends tonight. This time there was no threat to resist. Her shifts were gone. Her next paycheck would be short. The rent, groceries, and every ordinary bill waiting beyond Aurelia's gold doors had just become heavier. Nia closed the lunchbox, slipped it into her bag, and rose only after Eli finished the piece in his hand. She left the potato plate within his reach. Adrian stood with her. He pulled a checkbook from his jacket, wrote without looking at the amount line twice, and held out the check. This will cover whatever they took from you. Nia looked at the paper but did not touch it. You asked who taught me, she said. He did. Losing him taught me the rest. She folded her apron over the back of an empty chair. The fabric landed with a soft whisper. If I take that, tonight becomes a service you purchased. Adrian's hand lowered by an inch. That isn't what I mean. I know. Nia zipped her bag. But intention and impact aren't always the same thing. Eli knows that better than anyone. She crouched once more and held out 2 fingers. Eli wrapped his hand around them. Are you coming back? He asked. Nia waited until he released her on his own. Not as their waitress. She walked toward Aurelia's glass doors without the check, without her apron, and without turning her sacrifice into something a billionaire could erase. Behind her, the manager's tablet chimed again. Adrian tore the unsigned check in half. Then Eli reached into his backpack, pulled out 2 folded drawings, and placed them in front of his father. You need to see where you were, he said. The first drawing opened with the dry crackle of paper against marble. Warm chandelier light spilled across blue crayon, while the scent of truffle butter lingered over Eli's cooling plate. Adrian flattened the page with both palms. In the picture, a small boy sat behind a wall of gray vertical lines. The lines rose from the bottom edge to the top, too straight to be rain, too dense to be a window. Outside them stood tables, yellow lights, and faceless people drawn with open mouths. Adrian recognized himself immediately. Eli had colored him in a black suit and placed a phone against his ear. His body faced away from the boy behind the glass. "That's me," Adrian said. Eli tapped once beside his plate. "That's where you were." The neighboring guest still held up a recording device, but its bright screen now seemed indecent in the hush. Even the floor manager stopped touching his tablet. Adrian studied the space between his crayon figure and Eli's. It was only 4 inches of paper. It looked like a continent. "I was at the table," Adrian said, more quietly. Eli shook his head. The motion was small but certain. "Your chair was." A ventilation grate breathed cool air across the floor. Somewhere near the kitchen, silverware struck a tray and was immediately silenced. Adrian turned the drawing toward the chandelier, as if better light might offer him a kinder version of what his son had made. It did not. The gray wall remained. So did the phone. So did the turn back. His gaze moved to the second folded sheet. "May I?" Eli slid it forward. This page carried the same tables and the same yellow lights, but the gray barrier had changed. A rectangle had been cut into it with green crayon. Nia sat on the other side, her dark uniform rendered in heavy strokes, Micah's divided lunchbox beside her. 2 fingers reached through the opening. Eli's hand met them from within. Adrian touched the green outline. "Is this a door?" she asked first. Eli said, "She didn't pull me through." His words landed without accusation. That made them heavier. Adrian looked toward Aurelia's glass entrance. Beyond it, Nia's silhouette passed beneath the gold awning and disappeared into the cold city light. No check in her hand, no apron on her shoulders. Nothing taken from him except the lie that providing everything meant understanding anything. "What did she give you?" Adrian asked. Eli considered the question, then placed one fingertip on the small blue figure inside the drawing. "A way out that didn't make me wrong." Adrian's mouth opened, but no answer came. His phone vibrated against the table, rattling beside the torn halves of the check. The screen flashed with the name of the investor waiting for him upstairs. He turned it face down. Then Eli pointed to the black-suited figure in the first drawing. "You always tell people what I need before I can." Adrian drew a slow breath through his nose. The chilled marble pressed through the knees of his trousers, and for once he did not rise above the discomfort. "I thought speaking for you was protecting you. It makes me disappear." Adrian's fingers tightened around the edges of the paper. Tears struck the gray crayon wall one at a time, darkening it in uneven circles. He did not wipe them away. He did not reach for his phone. He bowed until his forehead nearly touched the image of the child he had been sitting beside but had never truly seen. Eli watched him, then moved the second drawing over the first, placing the green door directly above Adrian's turned back. "You can turn around," he said. Adrian lifted his face. His eyes were red, his voice stripped of the polished certainty that had controlled boardrooms and dining rooms alike. "Will you show me how?" Eli picked up the torn check, set both useless halves in his father's palm, and closed Adrian's fingers over them. "First," he said, "you have to ask her." The phone vibrated again. This time Adrian switched it off, rose from the marble, and looked toward the doors through which Nia had vanished. For the first time that evening, the decision before him could not be delegated, purchased, or commanded. It required him to leave the room he owned and approach the woman he had failed to hear without deciding her answer for her. Cold air rushed through Aurelia's brass-framed doors, carrying the wet hiss of tires from the Manhattan street and swallowing the restaurant's muted jazz. Near the curb, Nia stood beneath the gold awning with Micah's divided lunchbox pressed against her coat. Adrian stopped several feet behind her. He did not reach for her. He did not call her back. Instead, he took out his phone and called the board waiting upstairs for a signature worth hundreds of millions. "Cancel the signing," he said. A voice burst through the speaker, warning about penalties, investors, and months of negotiations. Adrian watched rain collect along the awning's edge. Then we absorbed the penalties. He ended the call before certainty could become another hiding place. Inside, crystal glasses trembled as the dining room speakers went silent. Adrian returned to the center of Aurelia, with Nia remaining near the open doors and Eli watching from beside his separated plate. The neighboring guest still held up a recording device. Adrian faced it. Keep recording. The floor manager's tablet glowed against his stiff black jacket. Mr. Vale, we can handle this privately. Privacy is how I kept calling my son's needs a problem. Adrian's voice carried past the white tablecloths and cooling plates. Tonight, I ordered strangers to make Eli appear normal because his distress embarrassed me. Ms. Brooks understood him. I tried to control the room instead of listening to my child. His next words cost more than the canceled deal. They stripped away the image he had spent years polishing. I was wrong. Eli's fingers stopped above the table. Adrian turned toward the floor manager. Vale Holdings' hospitality agreement with Aurelia ends tonight. The manager tightened his grip on the tablet. Adrian did not bargain over termination fees or soften the decision. He instructed his legal team to preserve the recording, ensure Nia's termination record could not be misrepresented, and document the reason for ending the contract. Then he walked back beneath the awning alone. Rain rattled against the metal overhead, and cold mist darkened the shoulders of his suit. Nia's thumb rested over the faded latch of Micah's lunchbox. If this is another check, she said, save the paper. Adrian placed nothing in her hands. Eli needs places where eating differently isn't treated like failure. Other children do too. A bus groaned through the intersection, washing amber light across the wet pavement. I want to fund a sensory dining center, he continued. Separated kitchens, adjustable lighting, quiet rooms, staff trained to ask before touching, speaking, or helping. Nia's gaze sharpened. And whose name goes on it? Not mine. Who chooses the staff? You. Who decides what families need? The families, with you designing the process. Adrian swallowed. You would have full authority. Independent oversight. No position at my company. No publicity requirement. And if you say no, the funding offer ends here. I will not build your idea without you. The torn check remained in his closed fist, growing damp at the edges. Nia looked through the doors at Eli. He had left his chair and now stood just inside Aurelia, one hand against the brass frame, waiting without being pulled forward. Adrian stepped aside, clearing the space between them. Nia opened Micah's lunchbox. The worn hinges gave a small metallic click. I won't answer for Eli, she said. And I won't answer tonight. Adrian nodded once. Then I'll wait. Nia studied him beneath the cold gold light. No, she said. You'll listen. Tomorrow, you come without lawyers, cameras, or a contract. Eli comes too. If he does not feel safe in the room, there is no center. From the doorway, Eli tapped twice against the brass. Nia answered with 2 taps against the lunchbox. Only then did Adrian understand that money had opened nothing. The next door belonged to his son. Morning light lay pale across the small community kitchen, warming the maple table while a refrigerator hummed beneath the soft click of Micah's divided lunchbox. No chandeliers. No piano. No silver plates touching. Nia had chosen the room because nothing inside it demanded attention. Eli entered first, wearing blue headphones and carrying 2 paper bags. Adrian followed without an assistant, a lawyer, or even his phone. Only a coffee stain marked the cuff of his plain white shirt. Nia pointed to 3 cards on the table. Quiet, break, and stop. Anyone can use them, she said. Adrian reached for a chair. Eli tapped twice on the tabletop. His father stopped. Too close. Eli slid the chair 3 feet away. Adrian moved it there without argument. Nia opened the first bag and found crackers, apple slices, and chicken packed in separate containers. The second held yogurt, toast, and a banana. Dad let me choose, Eli said. Nia placed Micah's lunchbox between them, but kept its lid closed. Then you decide how this meal works. Eli arranged the food by texture. Crisp on the left. Soft on the right. Nothing touched. When Adrian began peeling the banana, Eli raised the stop card. The peel froze halfway down. Ask first, Eli said. Adrian set it back. May I help? Eli considered the question, then pushed the banana toward him. Nia did not feed the first bite. She did not need to. Eli broke a cracker in two and placed half beside his father's empty napkin. You eat too. Adrian lifted it, but his hand trembled hard enough to scatter crumbs across the wood. At Aurelia, he said, I saw you hold Nia's fingers because you trusted her. I broke down because I finally understood what I had made you carry alone. The refrigerator motor clicked off. Silence settled over the room, clean and unforced. I thought being your father meant removing every difficulty, Adrian continued. So I removed your choices instead. Eli looked toward Nia. She answered with two light taps, not permission, only presence. The choice remained his. Eli pushed the toast toward Adrian. Cut it into squares, not triangles. Adrian obeyed. One square was uneven. Eli examined it, then ate it anyway. Nia's thumb moved across the worn metal latch of Micah's box. My conditions are simple, she said. No veil name on the building. No publicity built around Eli. Families help write the rules. Autistic adults are paid advisors, not decorations. And if a child says stop, everyone stops, including you. Adrian took a folded document from his coat and placed it on the counter without opening it. The funding is irrevocable. Your authority is independent. My access is the same as any parent's. Nia left the papers untouched. And if I walk away, the money remains available for whoever the advisory board chooses. I don't get control back. Only then did she open Micah's lunchbox. Its scratched compartments caught the sunlight, no longer a relic hidden beneath an apron, but the first practical model for a room built around dignity. Eli transferred one apple slice into it, then another. Finally, he held out a third toward Nia. She accepted it and sat across from him rather than beside him. This meal needed no rescue. It needed consent, patience, and 3 people willing to learn new places at the table. Adrian reached toward the yogurt, paused, and asked. Eli nodded. Spoon against glass. A faint smell of toast. 2 taps answered by 2 taps. When the meal ended, Eli wrote his first rule beneath the 3 cards in careful blue letters. Nothing about U.S. without U.S. Adrian read it aloud, signed his name beneath it, and handed the pen back to his son. The billionaire had offered to build the room, but the boy he once tried to correct had just written its foundation, and the waitress who fed him had taught his father that love begins by listening.